Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a story that absolutely blurs the lines between identity, culture, and family expectations. We're talking about Jamila Gavin's Forbidden Clothes. We're going to break down the plot, the characters, and the overarching themes to really explore how the story constructs a teenager's double life and, the profound consequences when those two totally separate worlds inevitably collide.
We are immediately plunged into the emotional core of the story right from the jump. Listen to this. They are taking her away from us. Imagine hearing those words spoken in a flat, monotone voice, hammered out with this desperate staccato precision. This is Mrs. Khan. After literally 6 weeks of near silence in her adult English classes, she leans forward and repeats this haunting phrase to her volunteer teacher Margot Henderson. It really makes you realize, wow, this isn't just vocabulary practice, it's a desperate cry for help.
But sadly, that cry for help just hits a total brick wall. The story paints this incredibly vivid picture of Mrs. Khan trapped in a state of what the text calls dumb depression. She's deeply isolated, she's struggling to communicate, and she is acutely aware that she's losing her 15-year-old daughter Nasreen. She can literally sense Nasreen slipping away into a Western world that she herself just cannot navigate or understand. And honestly, what makes this isolation even more tragic is the reaction of her English teacher, Margot. Margot is bored, impatient, and she completely misses the depth of Mrs. Khan's fear. She practically treats her like a child and just brushes off her concerns. It perfectly sets the stage for a story about these really profound disconnects between different worlds. Moving on to Section 1, Cinderella's Secret Wardrobe.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark visual contrast between Nasreen's two worlds. On one side, we have the Khan household. It's spotless, silent, scrupulously tidy, and governed by really strict traditional expectations. It's basically an environment devoid of visible teenage life. Then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we've got the home of her English friend, Louise Dibben. The Dibben household is described as looking like a tornado just struck it. It's buried under a rubble of toys, washing, and half-chewed rusks. But crucially, it's a good-natured chaos, right? For Nasreen, this messy house represents this intoxicating freedom and a massive escape from the rigid, pristine expectations waiting for her back home. And right within this pocket of freedom, Nasreen undergoes this crazy, high-stakes daily transformation. She leaves her house in a demure, sexless school uniform, complete with slacks for modesty and a severe headscarf. But the second she reaches Louise's house, boom, she sheds that identity. She squeezes into tight jeans she secretly saved up for, slaps on heavy makeup, and puts on what she laughingly calls her forbidden clothes. Then she ventures into town to flirt with boys like Carl, fully adopting this Western teenage persona. But, you guys, she is literally a modern-day Cinderella, living on a strict high-stress deadline. Before her father gets home at 9, she has to hide out in a bus shelter with Carl, rip off the jeans, put the slacks back on, and furiously replait her hair, desperately reverting back to the innocent girl her parents believe her to be.
But of course, a double life like this, it's heading for Section 2, the inevitable collision. Because a setup this precarious simply cannot last, right? The sharp climax arrives not through some simple mistake by Nasreen, but through the eyes of the community. Mr. Khan returns home early, radiating this fierce, cold anger. He orders Nasreen downstairs. The secret is completely out. Her excursions into town, wearing miniskirts and high heels, without her veil and slacks, yeah, they've been witnessed. Mr. Khan drops the devastating truth. This has been going on for months, and everyone in their community knows. The gossip has reached him, and in his eyes, he has been deeply ridiculed, and the family's honor has been profoundly compromised. This leads directly into a genuinely harrowing physical confrontation. Mr. Khan's reaction is steeped in this sense of ultimate betrayal and communal shame. He tells them, Nasreen has shamed me and her family and her community, and she must be made to realize what she has done. The reality of this realization is brutal. While Mrs. Khan pitifully clings to her daughter and begs for mercy, Mr. Khan takes off his leather belt and beats Nasreen. It's a harsh, totally unflinching look at the extreme lengths to which cultural and patriarchal authority are enforced in this household.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real shock of the story. The beating doesn't actually break her. Instead, Nasreen delivers this incredibly defined declaration to her school's head teacher. She maps out her grim timeline for us. She reveals she only has 2 months of freedom left. On her 16th birthday, she fully expects to be married off to a stranger from Pakistan. Her dreams of university completely crushed, replaced by a lifelong duty of serving a husband. Knowing her fate is essentially sealed, she declares a state of total, reckless rebellion for those remaining 2 months.
She tells her head teacher point blank she doesn't care how often she gets beaten, she's going to dress how she likes and smoke and shop doorways until her freedom is officially extinguished.
Which leads us to the story's resolution in Section 3, the Bonfire of Freedom.
So those 2 months of rebellion have passed. It's the eve of Nazrine's 16th birthday, the exact deadline she had marked for the end of her freedom. In the dead of night, at the Dibben household, Louise wakes up to find Nazrine just standing in the dark. But Nazrine isn't wearing her Western clothes anymore. She is fully dressed in her traditional tunic, pajamas, and veil. Beside her is a packed suitcase. Nazrine stops her friend from protesting, explaining super calmly, "I made a pact with myself that when I'm 16, I return to my community. It's where I really belong." She thanks Louise, basically tells her she's had her fun but it had to end, and then she just slips out the door, leaving her Western life entirely behind.
What follows is this incredibly vivid, totally cinematic scene. Back at the Khan house, dawn is just starting to break. Mrs. Khan wakes up, looks out the window, and immediately calls for her husband. Outside, silhouetted against the firelight, is Nasreen. She has lit a bonfire. One by one, she's taking her Western garments, her forbidden clothes from the suitcase, and tossing them right into the flames. Sparks are flying upwards, scattering like fireflies into the dawn sky. As Nasreen pulls her veil tightly around her shoulders and turns back toward the house, her mother whispers, "At last, you have come back to us."
So, the crucial point is really unpacking Section 4, themes of identity and duty.
When we look at the whole shebang, we see some massive themes colliding. First, the generational divides, which are heavily magnified by cultural assimilation. You've got Nasreen trying to integrate into a Western teenage culture, while their parents remain totally anchored in the traditions of their homeland, which creates this complete breakdown in communication. We also see the deep cost of duty and the agonizing clash between female autonomy and tradition. Nasreen desperately wants autonomy, the freedom to dress, socialize, and educate herself, But the crushing weight of familial duty and patriarchal tradition ultimately forces a massive reckoning. This story universally resonates because it perfectly captures the agonizing position of a teenager caught squarely between two totally distinct worlds and the incredibly heavy price of those cultural expectations.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question to consider. As we picture Nasreen standing by that bonfire, watching her forbidden clothes literally turn to ash, we have to ask ourselves, was Nasreen's final act a tragic surrender of her hard-won freedom to an oppressive system? Or, by honoring her own pact and returning on her own terms, was it a deliberate, empowered choice to reclaim her cultural identity and protect her family? It's a complex ending that really lingers long after the story finishes, and it's exactly what makes Forbidden Clothes such a compelling piece to unpack. Think on that, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.